Hi there, my name's James from Evrythng. We are the world's first not-for-profit spirits business, and what that means is every single penny of profit that we make, we give it away to climate and nature initiatives in the UK and beyond. A new company launched June last year, but growing at a great rate. We have people like Green Man Festival, Shambhala, Green Gathering as our sort of big festival partners, and then we're big in Bristol and across London as well. So an interesting business that's trying to change the relationship between when we buy things, the profit that creates, where does it end up ultimately?
Cool. Good to meet you anyway. I'm Ollie. I'm from the Exploding Bakery here in Devon. We're a cake crazy company that tries to do a bit of good on the side. We supply people like Fortnum & Mason, Waterstone cafes, mainly food service. And we try and do good by sourcing good ingredients that don't hurt the planet as much. And we try to lower our impact in other ways, using plastic-free packaging. And we're members of 1% of the planet too. So we give away 1% of our turnover to partnered charities. And currently we're working with Surfers Against Sewage. And then our chocolate supplier in Colombia has a charity arm where they protect the tropical dry forests where the cocoa grows. So that's our two charity partners.
Great. So we're going to ask each other some questions. So I guess I'll fire away.
Okay.
I suppose we should also mention that we're doing a competition, aren't we, to win some goodies? But I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I think when brands are our sort of size, these collaborations are good. You know, they're kind of cheap marketing for us, and you know we don't have the budgets to do these big campaigns. So I think they're great in that sense.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Question number one. So you guys are committed to being a more sustainable business. Yeah, you've mentioned 1% for the planet. UK-based organic flour, I believe, is one of your things that you source. But obviously, every supply chain, you know, always comes with some trade-offs. Can you tell us, like, one dirty secret that sort of keeps you up at night, where the most ethical option is either unaffordable or logistically not available? And how do you get around that?
So I'd say our biggest issue is fat. So we use mainly butter, and butter comes from cows. Well, our butter does anyway. You can get goat butter and other things, but that is quite a big environmental impact with the amount of methane that cows produce. But then you can look at regenerative farming practices, and hopefully more dairy herds are going to implement that. So they're using their manure for fertilizing fields, and they create a huge amount of wildlife with the insects that live out of cow dung, which help feed birds. So it kind of does. It could in the future be positive in some ways to the environment, but for our vegan options we use rapeseed oil, and I think this is the big bugbear of mine. You can get rapeseed oil that is organic. There is a small, very small oil producer down here in Devon. Unfortunately, the flavor is so strong, so it's like an extra virgin olive oil, but so it's quite bitter, tastes a bit like hay. So the rapeseed oil that we use is not organic, and it's from a monocrop. So monocropping does have an impact on the environment. You see these beautiful golden yellow rapeseed fields around the country, but there's no insects because of the insecticides used on them, which means there's no birds, and so it's not great. And the farming practices for rapeseed oil are not good. So that is an issue. We've looked at sourcing it, a more ethical option of this, and it doesn't exist.
So you've no doubt seen Wild Farmed and what they're doing with bread flour predominantly, but I believe they just launched an alt milk. Do you think that will come and start to affect rape in the future, or?
Maybe. I mean, I guess there might be some form of bicropping that could be done with rapeseed, or crop rotation where the soil can recover. I'm sure they will find a better way of implementing a more environmentally friendly farming practice with rapeseed oil. But we've looked at other things. We don't use palm oil as a company. That's one of our things. Again, it's tricky. We're not up for boycotting palm oil altogether because it's a whole industry. People live off this. You can't just turn your back on an industry. And the sustainable palm oil is incredibly shady. So we don't go there either. But the amount of deforestation caused from palm oil plantations is pretty gross. So that's why we don't use it. But then we've looked at other fats like coconut oil. It's all got to come from halfway across the world, and it's there's not really a solution here with fat. But hopefully, we're all working together and we're trying to find solutions and on this supply chain issue.
We very quickly got into one of the really big problems with when you produce stuff that people are going to buy, there's always going to be an impact. And it's a question of, we, over the last post-war, have been driven down this very intensive production processes because, they had to work out how to feed people quickly and affordably after the war. And that's led on to capitalism finding ways to get their grubby paws on reducing their costs. And it makes your life really hard because how do you source outside of that? And you've just described exactly how difficult that is.
I mean, existing is, if you exist as a human, you have an impact, and it's like. But luckily for you and us, we can either gorge ourselves on cake or drink ourselves to death.
Can do, if that's what you choose.
Well, and then we'll lower our economic, environmental impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great.
So I mean that's a long answer, but I hope that gives you an insight into the issues that we do face, and that's just one. That's the biggest one. There's lots of other issues. That are a lot of our ingredients come in plastic packaging. We do recycle the plastic, but we say we're plastic-free packaging, but still there is plastic in our bakery that comes in, and it is an issue.
So with Evrythng, we decided to start from the beginning that all the profit, not just a slice of it, would go to climate causes, and to be radically transparent about that. If you were to redesign the Exploding Bakery model from scratch using a 100% for-purpose model, which elements of your current brand, processes, or product line would you hold on to, I guess, and which would you throw away? Which are the important bits that you think you should retain if you were looking at that?
100% profit or purpose?
Well, I guess, okay, so that's a fair distinction. So if you were to think of how you would start today, and you set out to give 100% of your profit away and therefore be a very purpose-focused business, are there bits that you would change, or which bits would you hold on to?
I think we would be absolutely 100% ingredient-led. And I would love to grow our own wheat. I'd love our own cocoa plantation and conch our own chocolate. I would love our own cows for butter. I'd love our own chickens, and I'd do it all very locally, as much as I can. Maybe even growing our own rapeseed as well. And then we would be absolutely in control of our supply chain, and we could just be 100% transparent. And I think that would be give us more of our purpose would be about sourcing the best ingredients, both in quality but also in terms of the environmental impact of those ingredients. But it would be great, I'm not sure 100% profits to charity or to environmental causes would be the direction that we would want to go, even if we could go back in time still, because that model is kind of verging on being a charity, isn't it?
And I suppose what you're describing is that kind of pre-war or sort of 19th century and pre-19th century model where you did source your ingredients incredibly locally because that's all you could get. It didn't come from anywhere else. It came from the local environment. And that was a much more sustainable way of doing business. And it meant that you were creating jobs in your locality. You were providing people with healthy, nutritious food that came from a 50-mile radius. You weren't relying on plastic packaging to extend the shelf life of a certain ingredient. It just came in a sack. That was how we used to do things, and wouldn't it be amazing if we could do that again now? And I'm sure that if people can crack that, that would create a very, very strong embedded producer in their community, and they would only buy from you, because why would they go and get a UPF, fondant fancy from Co-op or whatever, although I think Co-op are quite a good company as well, but you know what I mean? When they can buy a really great locally sourced product that's feeding back into that community. I mean, that's a completely different model to what I'm describing, and is just as relevant. And I wonder, do you think that's achievable?
I think so. I think, Henry Dimbleby's national food set strategy was amazing. I think parts of it are being implemented. It was a real shame that it wasn't taken on by the government. The government employed him to write this strategy and then came up with a different version. But I think he's quite hopeful that this decentralization of whether it is milling flour or an abattoir and making it local is a much more stable food system. And COVID showed that. It showed how broken and fragile our food system is, and actually buying local, seasonal, organic is the way forward. It's the future. Yeah,
and it's going to be forced onto us, I think, because you can see what's happening in the some of the big river delta systems in Asia, where the seawater's getting into the paddy fields. That's going to have a huge knock-on effect about our food in some in the future. There are all these tipping points that are coming at us. So the more that this can be looked at and experimented with and put into action, the better. And if you look at what Guy Watson-Singh has done with Riverford and others that are really trying to push us into this system, I think it's really, really inspiring, and it is a different approach to the problem. And it isn't. I don't think you've mentioned sustainability once, which is really refreshing, because people, maybe you did, but people lean on that as a kind of, oh, look, I've got this new thing, and look, it's sustainable because we've taken 10% of the plastic waste out of our system. It's like, that is not sustainable. What you've done is make a slight improvement. Well done. But don't then sort of bang the sustainability drum. That is one of my big bugbears.
It's not always right. I think glass bottles for milk are a wonderful thing. It's almost a stamp of middle class. You can afford to buy this expensive milk, but actually, in our cafe, it's just not viable for us to have milk bottles that are round. They take up a huge amount of room in the fridge. They weigh a lot more. The amount of washing we needed to do with them, and actually a plastic milk container is probably a better option, and that plastic is then recycled. And the environmental impact reports of these things probably need to get more granular, and it's not that simple. There's a lot of grey areas.
But if your dairy, which you either owned or were connected to, was a mile down the road, then glass would be okay, or it would go back to aluminium churns. And it just goes around and around and around.
It would be good, but it's just a very, very tricky subject, and there's no right or wrong answer in it. But I think the mantra of local, organic, and seasonal is enough, I think.
Great. Yeah, understood. So we're based in Mid Wales, near Llanidloes, for those that know it. You guys are in Exeter. Neither of these are exactly London or Manchester in terms of the scale, but they've got this incredible creative and independent energy. How has being rooted in Exeter shaped the way that Exploded Bakery thinks about community and sourcing and sustainability? There's that word. And do you think smaller city bases actually give us an advantage?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were producing in London. It was so difficult. We were in East London. Just getting lorries in was a nightmare. We were in a railway arch, and we had to move because the line was electrified. This was back in before 2012. No, it was around 2012 they started. That was it. It was Boris was mayor of London at the time, and we couldn't get lorries down to the railway arch, so it was just a total nightmare. But we had our Devon bakery at the same time, and I was running that, and my business partner was running the London one. But we had a great opportunity to source butter from down the road from a cheesemaker called Quicks. Our eggs were literally from down the road as well. So we were much more in touch with our supply chain. I'd say our ingredients are better now. we're sourcing better quality and more consistent ingredients. Things like our chocolate are now, working directly with a chocolate supplier in Colombia. Our nuts are coming from Spain from a regenerative source. Yeah, I think we're much more in touch. But our cafes had the privilege of using a local organic farm for lots of their ingredients, and even the flour that they use in our cafe, we don't use it in our production bakery here, but our cafe uses Exeter grown wheat, which there's 2 organic farms just outside of Exeter that have grown this wheat, and it's milled quite locally as well. And that's amazing to go and visit, the wheat,
Yeah.
when it's growing. It's like it's an amazing feeling, and when you can take staff there as well,
Yeah.
they're much more invested.
So tough question, but do you think that makes people veer away from Gales into the exploding cafe, that message, or do you think you need to work harder to get that message?
I'd say our marketing is very poor on that. It's very hard to bang the drum. People don't understand about wheat. Most people are very shocked to know that most of the wheat is grown in Ukraine or Canada. They have no idea, and certainly Gales will be using Ukraine or Canadian grown. I know Wild Farmed have supplied them a bit, but Wild Farmed, again, it's they're a bit of a tricky customer when it comes to revealing the source of their wheat. A lot of it they can't, because some of it's, well, we don't know, but there is speculation that a lot of it's grown in France.
Yeah.
They make big claims about organically grown and regenerative, but there's no one auditing the farmers where they source the wheat. So that's a slippery supply chain that they have, and lots of people have boycotted Wild Farm for that reason. I think they're great in the way that they've done such a brilliant marketing job at getting people to understand regenerative farming, and being on Clarkson's farm was a big deal for Andy Cato.
Yeah.
But for us as a company, I think we fail in banging the drum of sourcing locally and why that's important. I think a lot of people don't care, and it's quite hard to bang a drum when no one's listening. I think that's
I guess it's a question of framing it, isn't it? So there's a very understandable sentence that makes them go, "Oh, blimey, didn't realise that."
And that's what Wild Farm have done. Wild Farm got people to listen. So now when we bang that drum, people will listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the importance of Wild Farm and the importance of good marketing and good messaging.
Slipstream marketing, they call it. You slip into somebody else's stream. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, we need to jump on that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. I would certainly turn left instead of turning right, just by the way, assuming that you guys are on the left. So last question, a bit of a fun one. If Exploding Bakery were a cocktail made with Evrythng vodka, what would you call it? And what ingredients and flavors would capture the ethos?
Okay. I like the name Cake Tin Alley. We've never been able to use it, but Cake Tin Alley, I think it's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
I think that's where you're going to end up after drinking the cocktail. So it's going to be a boozy one.
Yeah.
Probably a martini,
Nice.
a vodka martini. Could fat wash the vodka in cocoa butter. Our cocoa butter, so it's going to have a nice mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And then have it with a small amount of dry vermouth that's going to be infused with I don't know, some maybe not botanicals, but infused in some sort of fruit, a kind of more fruit-based vermouth.
Okay.
Maybe citrusy. Yeah.
So we're not super dry here. We're sort of veering to a slightly.
Yeah. Well, there might be some sugar in that vermouth, but so it's maybe not the driest martini, but it's going to be boozy and pack a punch, be filled with flavor and good fun. And I think that's the ethos of our company.
Fantastic. I think that you've controversially chosen to do a vodka-based martini as opposed to a gin one. Means that you can get away with some of those sweeter profiles. Setting the I love the idea of the fat washed cocoa butter.
I don't know if it's ever been done, but
well, listen, I was working with a guy over in Machynlleth who was fat washing with strawberry yogurt the other day. So it's probably been done somewhere.
Okay. Wow.
Fantastic. That's great. It's really interesting to hear that. I mean, I hadn't appreciated your dedication to this. I mean, we read about it on your website, but to hear about the way that you're thinking about it and have already made improvements by shifting over to the local Quicks, I think you said dairy, and
we stopped using Quicks because they were too small. And this is the problem as you scale a business.
Yeah.
And this is where I've got so much respect for your business, because you do want to scale, but you want to do it with so much integrity. You've thought ahead. We've never really thought ahead about scaling.
Okay.
You have to scale your business, because if you stand still, you get eaten up, and you quite often will disappear. You'll go bust if you don't move forward.
Yeah.
Moving forward is normally scaling up. And the issues we've had with scaling is that supply chain, doesn't exist. These small farmers that you were buying from before, as you can't supply you're just too big.
Yeah.
We're not even big. We are still we're just moved into a medium-sized company.
Okay.
We are tiny still, but we found this supply chain is a real issue. So now, the vision is to the future, when we are turning over, say, 10 million as a company, we will be in charge of our supply chain. So that means probably buying a cocoa plantation, or
wow.
I'd love an egg farm, a local egg farm as well, and thinking about these things, and certainly growing our own wheat, or in collaboration with a local organic farm, and then milling it here. These are the things that we need to think about.
I mean, Fevertree really kind of set the bar, didn't they? 15 years ago now, probably, when they talked about their sourcing journeys and going to the Fevertree and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know if they bought farms. I don't think they did, but they certainly based their entire product story around their sourcing, and the famous line of 3/4 of your gin and tonic is tonic. Make sure you're using the best. And it's really clever. There is an anti-UPF type bakery story that really digs into. I'm sure all of the independent bakeries around the country are talking about sourcing, but if you're growing it to 10 million, then on to 50 million, maybe there is an opportunity to really talk about those ingredients, especially with the UPF thing banging around.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. And it's weird that it feels like cake has stood still in some ways, and Kipling is still the go-to. Like you talked about buying something from the co-op, it's that's probably a Kipling cake, and every other sector people have traded up, whether that's crisps from Walker's to Kettle, and then Burt's, and then Tyrrell's. And vodka, and certainly gin. It wasn't that long ago where it was just sort of Beefeater, Tanqueray, and were kind of the gins on the shelf. And now there's like so many, but with cake, it's still, there isn't a brand that has kind of knocked Kipling off the shelf, really. It's
interesting.
Hopefully someone will do it.
The own brand stuff, maybe like the Waitrose own brand, is like sort of the premium upgrade at the moment. So there's definitely a gap there.
Yeah, I think some of the M&S stuff is made with a bit more integrity, and there's certainly less ultra processed foods, but there's a huge amount of preservatives and inverted syrups and
emulsifiers and all that.
Yeah, these emulsifiers and stuff. So
they've just done a clean label range there, haven't they? Which they've tried to, right?
M&S or
okay,
that would be interesting.
They put the ingredients on the front of the pack of some of their bread rolls and that kind of thing. Which was a bit of a storm in the LinkedIn food marketing niche that I tend to hover around in. But there's definitely a desire for cleaner labels and better sourcing, and there's only so much price elasticity. Of course, you can't go too far on it unless you're these aren't luxury goods per se, but people will pay more once that messaging is absolutely right. Yeah,
and if it tastes good, I mean, Charlie Bingham's do it well.
Yeah.
I think they're about 10 quid for one of their ready meals that feeds 2 people, and I don't think that's completely unaffordable. I think that's a Friday night treat for some people, or the slightly wealthier people. That's a Wednesday night, dinner where you're midweek and you're tired and you just want to shove something in. And I don't think it's completely unaffordable.
No,
price points.
Yeah, and I hope they're doing stuff to make their sourcing better.
Yeah, I think they are. Charlie Bingham's are pretty good. They don't use they don't label it free range chicken, but they source as much free range chicken as possible. And I think they're quite transparent with everything as much as they can be. I think they're a good company. Okay, James, I've got some questions for you here. Planet, not profit. Okay, when and why did you decide to ditch the Gordon Gekko playbook and go full Captain Planet?
Yeah, so I tried.
You know, Gordon Gekko is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I tried that route. The short answer is that it's very obvious that the climate is the biggest issue that we are facing, and we will continue to face. You know, when we're striving for peace in the Middle East, and we've got the Sudan issue, and obviously the Ukraine issue. All of these things are huge global political and social problems that need solving. But ultimately, no planet, none of this makes any difference. So my laser focus is on thinking about how, if we make things as producers that people are going to buy on a regular basis, we have a responsibility. That's number one, to the climate. And you've got two routes into it. One route that you just described is to really laser in on your sourcing and how you work, so that you're reducing your impact to the lowest economically viable level that you possibly can. That's really important. There's another route where you sort of say, oh, we're super sustainable, but it's actually just greenwashing. Forget that route. There's so much of it out there, unfortunately. But one day I was thinking, there's another route into this. And I did some research, and around about $17 trillion of net profit is produced from the sale of consumer packaged goods every year, right? So if you think about Unilever and Mars and PepsiCo and Diageo and Pernod Ricard and all of these massive multi-conglomerate businesses, plus all the others, they make $17 trillion of net profit every year, which tends to disappear up the chain, never to be seen again. And of course, they tell us a great story about how green they are and all of that stuff, which mostly isn't true. So if there's all that money out there, you can say that the money to fix the planet is out there. We just need to take it back, right? So our approach is to create great products that look great, that taste great, that sit on the shelf at the right price. So
that's Freudian, isn't it?
Exactly. So they're not an expensive upgrade. They're an everyday shopping decision. But instead of the profit disappearing up the chain, we take that profit and we give it to the groups that are doing the hard work of, restoring nature or protecting natural habitats or doing nature-based climate initiatives and that kind of thing. Because when you look at Diageo, they've had, well, not under that brand name, but under other brand names that the group was held under, they've had around about 150 years of the good times, right? Selling products to us where they take a natural resource, make profit on it, and use that profit to get very, very wealthy. That gig's up. That we can no longer carry on behaving like this. We need to we need to dig ourselves out of the climate hole, and we need to do that quickly and with great impact. And one of the best and quickest ways to do that is to think about this profit stream. So whilst producers like yourselves are doing incredibly important work around thinking about what does the future look like, at the moment we need to create a pot of money, a very, very big pot of money, so that the people that are doing the actual spades in the ground fixing the climate are able to do that faster, harder, quicker, deeper, etc. And we can do that by giving consumers great products but redirecting that profit. So we say we are hacking capitalism. All of the capitalist steps are the same. The person growing the grain for the vodka gets paid. The person who drives it around in the lorry gets paid. The distillery that produces it gets paid. The people that create the packaging get paid. We sell it to the shop. They get paid when they sell it to consumers. The profit that we make by selling it to the shops and direct to consumers is the only bit that changes. And we've decided to redistribute where that money goes. So we take that profit and we give it away. Now, there's a whole bunch of issues around that. The main one is cynicism. Okay, so consumers over the decades have been told, buy our stuff and we'll fix the world, right? And 99 times out of 100, it's just another route to backdoor riches. So if you look at the wild deodorant issue, nothing against the founders, I'm sure they're great people, but unfortunately they produced this deodorant range and lifestyle brand that was reducing the amount of plastic that we needed to use deodorant. Lots of people jumped on their journey, and it allowed them to grow to the point where they sold to Unilever for £250 million. Now that means that Unilever, the world's biggest plastic polluting company, are going to, hopefully they'll do amazing things with it. But if you're a cynic, you'll probably suggest that they might start to change how that works, and all of a sudden that product won't be quite as green and good for the environment as it once was. The reason that happened was because the Wild founders raised a load of venture capital. The venture capitalists want them to 10x their investment. The only way that they can really do that is by exiting to one of the big companies. So we've decided to try and get rid of this problem, because you as a consumer might say, well, hold on a minute, James, I'll buy a lovely bottle of your vodka and I'll buy it for 10 years. And then what's going to happen is you're going to sell it to Diageo, and then, you know, we're back to square one. So we pledged that there are no for-profit investors in the business. Nobody is extracting profit from this today or in the future, and that's all. It's not yet, but it's going to be completely baked into our legal structure of the business. Articles of association will mean there's golden shares. That means no one can ever buy Evrythng. We'll never IPO, we'll never issue shares, we'll never do any of the things that get us back into that capitalist system. That's really important. Number three, I'll skip number one, which I'll come back to. Anyone can log into our Xero account. So Xero is the online accountancy software which is attached to our bank account. So it means that anyone around the world, customer or not, can ask for us for a login, and they can literally inspect every line of our business and see where the money's going. Are we buying Porsches on expenses to bolster our income? Are we giving our money to Nigel Farage? Are we doing, you know, are we flying to the moon and back? You know, all this stuff is available to be inspected. So that's radical transparency, which is a globally unique initiative. Nobody else in the world, as far as I can tell, does it. There are companies that release their accounts, but they do it, you know, 6 months delays and that kind of thing. You can do it in real time with us. And the other thing, which is a bit of a complex initiative, but basically I don't take a traditional salary. Evrythng businesses, and I'll explain why I'm using the plural in a minute, they will all be run by micro teams, really, really tiny teams. In fact, I, at the moment, just do everything. And I get paid 50p per bottle sold, and that's capped at £85,000 a year. Now, that does two things. At the moment, we're turning over a very small amount, so that means I'm nowhere near my salary cap. So it means it inspires me to keep working really hard to try and reach that. But it also means that if you buy a bottle tomorrow, the profit is released immediately, not at some point in the future when you've covered my salary and the 10 people in the marketing department and, you know, the 5 people that are working for one of those big consultancies and all that kind of thing. So historically, people might say, we're giving away 10% of our profit to save the rhino. You know, guess what? 5 years in and they've hardly given anything away because their cost structure is too high. So we're changing that. So some of this stuff is quite radical. It's untested. You know, we're doing it to try and see if we can build a new way of doing business. So, you know, you mentioned the Gorgon Gecko thing. Historically, you say, I'm going to launch a vodka. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to raise a load of money. I'm going to build it up and I'm going to sell it to Diageo, right? The problem is everyone does that, and you end up with 1,000 vodkas and they're all basically the same. If you forego that big sort of unicorn exit for a steady, decent income, and 85 grand's enough for me, some people might need more, whatever it might be, we can start to change the system so that we're building sustainable, I don't mean environmentally sustainable, I mean businesses that can sustain themselves without chasing this kind of venture capitalist funded dream of, you know, build, grow, exit. We just don't need to do that anymore. And it means that the benefactor is the planet, you know, and that sounds like some sort of knit your own yogurt green nonsense, but actually system change is what we're talking about, changing the capitalist system so that we can start to fund the people that are doing the hard work. That's really sexy. Saying that your gin is sustainable because we reuse leftover grain at the end of the week. It's like everyone just rolls their eyes. It's just like, what are you talking about, mate? It's nonsense. So we're trying to create this system that drives profit back into the people that are doing the hard work, and that's the kind of realization. I've tried to do the entrepreneurial hustle and I've raised money from Diageo, the biggest alcohol company in the world, for my last business. Yeah, and we just about scratched through and sold it, and the people we sold it to, it was fantastic. It was brilliant, but it was such hard work and it didn't really get us anywhere. So it's like, there's another way of doing this. And then selfishly, if you're entrepreneurially driven, you want to see your product on every shelf in the land. By creating such a unique, pure and transparent business model, it allows me to walk into any bar, restaurant, club, nightclub, festival organizer in the world and say, we've got something different. This isn't just the next gin. And they go, oh, hold on a minute. This is really interesting. Let's see if we can make this work. So in a way, I'm kind of foregoing the big payout for my entrepreneurial to scratch my entrepreneurial itch, which is to create something really successful, and it allows me to do that. And but at the same time, obviously, we're doing hopefully the right thing.
And it's an open source model, I understand. So you will allow it to be replicated.
Exactly.
And if it works, it could be applied to anything. You know, people who manufacture these cups could
yeah.
You know, whoever. And I think that's the, you know, I don't know. I mean, you're driven by protecting the environment, but maybe a bit of ego as well. Like you want recognition for this.
Yeah, and I'm just being completely transparent about that, because ultimately I want to attract other entrepreneurs into this ecosystem, and we're driven by that. You know, you walk into a room and somebody goes, "Oh, that's the bloke who did that."
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I did that. And so, you know, absolutely, I'm driven by
Save
that.
the world, you are Captain Planet.
Yeah, but you know, don't tend to talk about that too much because it makes you look like a bit of a douchebag. But ultimately, we're here to try and change the system so that the profit doesn't just float up to the top.
Yeah,
it gets used to fix problems, and it means that people can. We all love to buy stuff, right? And in fact, we have to buy food and drink because you can't recycle your cornflakes, right? You can recycle the box, brilliant, that goes into recycling, but you have to go and buy more cornflakes, and you have to do that every week, right? So that's why Kellogg's and etc. get incredibly wealthy, because they create a brand around it and you buy Kellogg's. So if we can put a product on the shelf that is as sexy as Kellogg's, so it looks great, it tastes great, it's the right price, it's available where you already shop, and we can tell this story to the right people, i.e. the people that are already on this journey about how do we consume in a more ethical way, you can all of a sudden unlock an incredibly powerful beast where you don't need the 100 million marketing budget that Kellogg's have, because you're telling your neighbors and your neighbors are telling 10 of their friends, and all of a sudden you're at the races, right? So when you look at what happened with Who Gives a Crap, which launched, I believe, in 2016, they're now, I always make this number up, so this is a made up stat, but they're about the 5th biggest toilet paper manufacturer in Europe or something. Pick your own stat. But that's because they created a new model and created something that was desirable. It's a commodity, but it's a very desirable commodity, right? Gin, rum, vodka, they're commodities. They just have a load of marketing applied to it. George Clooney or whoever it might be saying, this is the one that you should buy. So we can create that cut through with the business model. You know, the packaging is awesome, the product is awesome, the price is right. But our marketing is the fact that we're doing something so uniquely different that it just makes people go, blimey, that's really interesting. There is another way. I don't have to give my money to Diageo or Pernod or whomever. We can actually do something where, you know, we're building a climate dedicated economy by us. We're not sitting around waiting permission from them. We're just getting on and doing it. That's the really exciting thing.
There's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, people need to understand economics, and I think someone like Gary's economics has been useful.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting it now. People are understanding that the rich are just getting richer, and this system is broken.
Exactly.
And you know, something's got to change. What's the toughest choice you've made? Have you ever told a big client to fuck off because of morals, or they're just not a good fit? And would you ever sell to supermarkets?
Yeah, 2 questions there, I guess. So we haven't had to tell anyone that we don't want to work with them yet. I think that's partly because we're doing a lot of outreach in terms of creating the new business and that kind of thing. I guess in the future, there might be issues where when we grow, people are coming to us that we don't feel are aligned. I won't mention any names, but there was a pitch that I was going to go for a club in London. And it turned out that, this is so relevant, but so weird, that the owner was involved in something to do with the Israeli Defense Forces. So it's like, don't think we should go for that one. I mean, I'm sure it's all, above board, and obviously you can Google that and find out what it is. But other than the fact that that was a news article, it didn't feel quite right. Okay. Supermarkets, 100%. The whole point of this business.
100% you would sell to them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The point of Evrythng is that we are infiltrating the system, taking the profit from the big guys. If we don't go into those big systems, we can't take the profit.
You can never change it.
Yeah. So we have no we're not squirmish about dealing with anyone from M&S all the way down to what are those bargain, whatever they are, whatever it is. Yeah.
But what about are you prepared for being on special offer for a year?
Well, the whole promo thing is really hard work, and you have to forecast that into your margins and that kind of stuff. the short answer to that is we would play the game.
You would too.
Yeah. The big issue that everything has, especially when it's focused on alcohol, and we touched on the fact that hopefully other people do coffee and chocolate and all that kind of thing. When it comes to alcohol, as soon as you take a bottle from out of bonds, you have to give it to the government.
Yeah.
So if Tesco order 100,000 bottles, you've got to find £90,000, to give to the government, and that means your cash flow is constantly behind by 60 days. Tesco's are actually very good at paying smaller businesses. They'll pay on 7 days often.
Okay.
But not everyone does that, especially wholesalers. They're looking at 30 days end of month, which is a real problem. So there's a whole issue around how we manage that working capital, and we're looking at some inventive ways of doing that with like micro fundraising, pre-sale, so you can buy a token and then go and turn that token into a bottle when you go to the shop, all of that kind of stuff. But this is all for the future. But that is one of our biggest issues. That aside, we want to sell to everyone. We want this to be a product that is number one in the land, because that's when it's working. There's no when we've tried to build brands in the past, we thought let's build it in the right location so that the right people find it first, and that creates an air of exclusivity and excitement around the brand. I think that's still relevant, but I think that's kind of driven by what happens when we go to Bristol. The right people want to put it on their shelf, so that means the right people that go into that bar will see it first. It's not the Stonegates who own 1,000 pubs in the UK that are buying it, because they have a very, very slow procurement process and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So in a way, this is all happening organically. But we want to be everywhere.
And it's a top-down thing. You want to be in the the top 50 cocktail bars in the world, because then when those barmen are using it, everyone else will want to use it. That's the way it works.
100%.
Your spirits are born in the Welsh hills. Does terroir matter to you in this case?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yes, but it depends how you define terroir. So
I mean, is it Welsh water that's going into?
So we use we use the lovely soft water from the Rhondda Valley, and we talk about that. So
I guess are you capturing the spirit of Wales in your spirits? Is there?
Yeah, so there are two processes. You use water to create the spirit, and obviously that water. There's a thing called grain neutral spirit. So distilleries don't tend to create that from scratch. Some do, but they tend to source that from somewhere else, and then they take that liquid and then they add the botanicals if it's gin, or they rectify if it's vodka. So that process has got nothing to do with our terroir, because it comes from somewhere else.
Rectified, that means watered down, doesn't it?
Well, no, rectification is a process of putting it back through the still to strip out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a thing called liquoring back, which is the watering down.
Okay.
Which is the second part of the process. So when you're creating the spirit, you're stripping out, in many respects, the H2O, because you want everything to evaporate and then condense again and go back into the still. So there's very little terroir in terms of what's come from the soil, what's come from the grain. And whiskey's a bit different because they distill at a lower ABV.
I think the term is more like not the actual soil, the terroir, like in wine, but actually is there something Welsh about your spirit? I think that's the Welsh kind of the Welsh spirit. Or
okay, yes, because I mean I'm not Welsh, so but I love living in Wales, and I feel proud to be a part of the community that we've arrived in. The Welsh spirit to me is independence. It's about doing things your own way. It's about being slightly or being incredibly loyal to your community, right? So are we distilling that into our brand? In a way, yes, we are, because we're all about thinking about what does colonialism and what does this kind of power structure, how has it affected us? We've all middle-class white blokes, we've done all right? But there's a discussion going on, which is that probably needs to change, right? So there's a lot of Welsh kind of energy in that, and I hope anyone Welsh listening won't find that I'm being patronizing there, but I feel that way, So yes, in that respect,
I think being transparent that we are champagne socialists. We are that, and I guess there's probably a bit of guilt with that, but we're doing something. We're not just talking about it.
Exactly, not just sat around the pub. And it's not just an academic concept. We're actually that's really important. So yes, in that respect, but we do put the water from the Rhondda Valley back into the product when we liquor it back to 40%, because the vodka ends up at about 80 plus. The gin the same. So we have to add water to bring it back down. So yeah, there is some Welsh terroir in there. But people will talk about terroir with spirits a lot more than they should be.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it really belongs to wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This is quite a funny one, being cancelled. So whether that's being trolled as well, but I think cancelling is more of a calculated trolling to try and put you down in a big way and get people to ghost you or boycott you.
Yeah.
Do you have like a crisis comms or plan? And will it be just a quick apology or just go quiet? Or do you just think, oh, fuck it, let's embrace it, let's get drunk and talk about it and laugh about it? Or...
Yeah. So I'm not going to sit on the fence here, but it kind of depends, right? I think about it a lot. So if this works, it's going to upset some people, no question. So whether that is because you have a more kind of Daily Mail outlook on life, maybe this is just socialism via a different route. It isn't, because we're using the capitalist model and all that kind of thing. It might upset you, and you might become a keyboard warrior and fire some stuff at us. My background, you might dig into that and bring up some things that I've done. We've all got a history. I used to work for Rupert Murdoch, who's now considered to be one of the biggest kind of climate denying, supporting media barons that's ever. You could dig into that if you want to. But I think possibly what might happen is one of the big producers, or they might come together and say, look, these guys are eating into our business here and we can't buy them, because that's what normally would happen. Look at Beavertown, look at Sipsmith, look at all of these where the incumbents have gone, they're getting too big, we'll just buy them. And they either buy them and shut them down, or they buy them and integrate them into their business. They can't do that with us. So they're never going to be able to buy what we're doing. So they'll come up with other ways of creatively thinking about how they can control us. And without giving too much away, distribution is going to be an interesting one. Supply is going to be an interesting one. Production is going to be an interesting one. But I always say, if that happens, we're winning. Yeah. Starts to happen, we're making it better.
With Brewdog being cancelled as many times as they have, obviously it was like a deliberate thing for them for marketing to get people talking about their stunts. But I think the cancelling of the owner, do you think that was actually coming from some of the competitors? It felt like there was a witch hunt for him.
I think he didn't make it any less hard for them to do that. He made it easy for them to do that, because his approach to a lot of things is controversial and a bit, it rubs people up the wrong way. I don't know about whether it's competitors. I don't know, but it felt like as they grew, the seniority around the business was starting to say, listen, James, some of the stuff you're doing doesn't really align with a global business that's trying to, reach all the corners of the earth. Have you ever thought about taking a bit of a backseat here? I think that's possibly what happened. And now he's just busy on LinkedIn doing what he does.
But it's a shame, because, ultimately they were trying to do good. They were trying to change beer for the better, and they were trying to help the environment. They were trying to be a good employer. They were trying to tick all the boxes. And then it's, I still think they're like Wild Farms. They changed so much, and everyone was in their slipstream. Beavertown. May not have been so successful if it wasn't for Brewdog.
Having I started out this life in working for a tiny little craft brewery in Hackney Wick called Crate. Great place to work.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah. The brewers, were always very, very dismissive of Brewdog. So Beavertown, when they started, Beavertown were doing some incredible stuff.
I remember that they were in Duke's Brew and Q.
That's it. Yeah, in the Beauvoir, which is where they're from. Yeah. And Logan, he was a massive beer lover, and the beer they produced was incredible, and people loved it. The brand was incredible. Nick, I believe, who did the design, I think was his name. Incredible stuff. I think for Logan, he saw this opportunity when Heineken came a knocking, and it was too big to give up. I mean, I have no opinions on that so much, because I still feel that Beavertown are a great business. Brewdog, because of James and what he did, always, you either loved it or people were like, you got the ick, because some of the stuff they did around pink beer and other things, it was just a bit, I don't know. So I think he sort of had a big hand in his own downfall, to be honest.
Okay, but I guess you'll never tread that line from a marketing perspective. Like your line is hacking capitalism, essentially. That's the top line.
Yeah. I think we do have to go for the jugular, but in a way that is aligned with our business. Yeah, we're always going to be very careful about treating people fairly and being decent people in that respect. It's just about calling out the right things. It's a real hard line to tread. Yeah.
And lastly, I mean, you kind of touched on this, and I think I know the answer, but it would be good to hear you say it. Ernst Schumacher, the economist, coincidentally, there was a Schumacher College in Devon.
Totnes.
Yeah, where I'm from. My
Right.
business partner is from there as well. But he wrote a book, Small is Beautiful, and it was what he thought was a way of changing capitalism. If small businesses could be the answer, again, it's like a food system. It's much more stable. If the country's made up of, or the world is made up of these small businesses, it could be the solution to capitalism. But it's just want to know your thoughts. And it seems that your model is different, but do you still believe that small is beautiful?
We talked about this at length at the beginning, and we talked about these structures where you're sourcing from a 50-mile radius and all that. 100%, that is our future, and we're either going to adopt it or it's going to be forced onto us because we'll reach all these tipping points and collapses of various things. So yes, the answer is yes, it is the future. Resilience, these community, what are they called? Brain stop now. Where people make decisions on a very local basis. There's more control in local. The governments have less power over what happens in our vicinities and that kind of stuff. So yes, 100%. But you're right. We're doing this differently. We are infiltrating the system to take the money and give it to the people that are doing the hard work. So we don't want to be small. We want to be massive. But in a way, we want to be made redundant in 10, 15, 20 years. We sort of don't want to exist, because you'll get your gin from the distillery 5 miles down the road in the same bottle that you've used since day one. You give it a wash out, you take it back and they refill it. You get your dairy from the same process. You buy your trousers from the mill that is using flax and whatever. There's no such thing as a cotton t-shirt from Primark, because the carbon tax on it is so high that it costs you 50 quid. So you come up with another solution. We're wearing hemp and all that kind of thing. So 100% that is the future. How far away that is kind of up to us. Whether we keep dumping CO2 into the atmosphere and it's forced upon us, or we adapt, change, realize that that's the way to go. Put value in the stuff that we buy, so that when you buy a t-shirt, you wear it for 5 years, not for 5 minutes. Like I said, reuse, reduce, recycle, local, organic. This is the big stuff, but you can't recycle your cornflakes. So
it's interesting. I think like these cottage industries will really take off, particularly with AI. There's going to be a lot less jobs, so people will start making stuff. It was happened in COVID. People didn't work, so everyone started making brownies at home, or making little bits of jewelry, or So I think in probably in 5 years' time, jobs are going to really start disappearing, whether you're a lawyer or an accountant. And people are going to start turning to making stuff.
Definitely, yeah. And in the meantime, you can buy a bottle of our vodka or whatever it might be, and 5 quid of it will immediately go to hopefully fixing one of the problems, as opposed to it just disappearing up into the chairman's private jet fund, which is what happens at the moment. That's what it is summed up in a sentence, really. It's like
there's just something quite visual about distilling. Distilling money.
Yeah,
money is kind of distilled, and it all goes into one funnel, and it is fed to the rich almost.
I mean, we haven't got into the pensions issue yet, but maybe that's for another podcast.